shift happens.
Welcome to the Growth Pilot Partners podcast, where we talk to people in hospitality, discover what was that secret moment as a little kid that they got hooked into being in this world. And today I'm excited to be with Jeremy Gassen. He's the CTA and General Manager of the Iris Inn and Cabins in Virginia's Blue Ridge Mountains. Jeremy's been in hospitality since the late 90s, working in the big corporate hotels before switching over to independent inns where he could do what he loves the most, which is to personalize the guest experience. Under his leadership, the inn has grown into a full portfolio that now includes the Inn at Brierley Hill and even Afton Mountain Vineyards. So he's basically cornered the market on romance, relaxation, and good wine. I'm excited to hear how he's balancing hospitality with the rise of technology. So, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. Yeah. And I have a connection to that part of the world. I don't know if we mentioned this, but my uncle was an actor who played the father on the Waltons, and Virginia was the Waltons Mountain. So I feel connected.
The home and museum that your dad filmed in was just down the road. It's about 45 minutes from us.
Wow. Fantastic. Earl Hammer's old place.
Yep.
So Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say my entire family is a huge fan, and every time they come out, we have to swing by. So yes.
Yeah. It's a funny thing. It's a very specific time. There are people either like know it and love it or have never heard of it. It's really like a special kind of niche. But let me ask you this, because what I'm finding interesting is, what was the moment, I guess, when you were a kid, or where hospitality, food, something in this world, was there ever a moment as a child that you kind of went somewhere and went, wow, this is kind of cool? No, what I was asking was, everybody I've talked to in hospitality, it was either like they went to some beautiful hotel when they were 10, or they had their first Caesar salad where they made it tableside. What was like that moment for you where hospitality was like, wow, this is cool?
Far and away, it was the Palmer House in Chicago. It is, I believe, the oldest continuously operating hotel in that area in the Midwest. And I went there as a kid and walked into the lobby, and it's this amazing 2-story lobby with frescoes all over the ceiling, and just this absolute, as a kid, it was the ultimate in class and just almost glamorous. And I was hooked from then on. And once I was in college, I joked that I got into hotels for my day job while I was in school, and I just never left.
And now, how old were you when that happened?
Oh, gosh. That would have been grade school. So, maybe 6th or 7th grade, somewhere in that range.
So like 10.
Yeah. I went with my parents.
That's crazy. Because it's funny. I was just talking to one woman, Eileen Horner, who owns a famous inn up in Maine. And she talked about watching a podcast with Ina Gartner, talking about it's at 10 years old, your brain is so impressionable. And a lot of people that I'm talking to in hospitality, it was something like that, like walking into the Palmer and going, this is a different world. I mean, this is not
Absolutely.
my house.
Yeah.
Got it.
I grew up in small town Missouri. So going to Chicago was amazing. And then seeing the inside of this just magnificent building and everyone dressed to the nines, and it definitely made an impression. Yes.
Yeah, it's magical. So now, how did you you got started back in the late 90s in this world?
Yeah. So, in college, I worked at a front desk, and just loved it. And my degree is actually in theater. It has nothing to do with hospitality. But once I graduated, I just stuck with it.
You have to behave very well when you don't feel like it. So you have this experience at the Palmer Hotel, and then you start working at the front desk, but you had a theater background. And so like, and where did you start? Was it in Chicago, or where was your sort of beginning in all of this?
No, so this was in southern Missouri. I
Okay.
went to school at Southwest Missouri State down in Springfield, and I worked at a small local chain originally. But I found that it worked really well with my theater degree, because I kind of feel like we are creating this kind of personalized experience
Mhm.
for everybody that comes in. You listen to why they're in the area and you try and craft something just specifically for them. And it was so similar to what I was doing in the theater world, trying to reach people where they were and create a memorable experience that I loved it. And then as I progressed into management, I was able to actually start pulling some stuff that I did in the theater world into my hospitality world. We've done murder mystery dinner theaters and all kinds of fun things like that. And so I kind of feel like I got the best of both worlds.
Well, it's interesting because I've always said I have a theater background as well. And I've always said, short term, intense, intimate relationships that end quickly,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, you're in a play and you think, oh my God, we're going to stay in touch forever. And then it's over. And it kind of feels analogous to the hotel experience, right? I mean, you're at a pivot, someone's getting engaged, they're bringing someone there to propose, or it's their wedding. And when people are traveling, their sort of id gets revealed, right? They're on unfamiliar ground. The dynamics
100%.
come up between couples about the power and control and who's going to make the decision, putting you in the position, I guess, of the sort of therapist, coach, management of their experience. Would that be accurate?
100%. And I've always loved, and this may be a part of the theater degree, or it may be why I went into theater in the first place, but I've always been a people watcher. I like to
Mhm.
observe and I like to see how people interact with each other and pick up on some of the little picadillos that everybody has. And I'm kind of in the perfect position to do that. So, yeah.
So now you go into the corporate hotels, like the big boxes, the private owned by private equity. Click the box, check the square. I'm
Yes.
imagining with someone as creative as you, that could have been frustrating.
It was insanely frustrating. I was young, right out of college. The traditional business trajectory was to advance in your career and go to ever larger companies and get paid more money. And I did that. And what I discovered was the further I advanced in my career, the less I saw of my guests.
Hmm.
I was stuck in an office, doing, marketing or accounting, which don't get me wrong, I love marketing, but it's not what drew me to hospitality in the first place. And the frustration with that, um, and even the beyond just the lack of guest contact, I was very limited in what I could do at the
Hmm.
properties. We had to maintain the image of this large multinational corporation. And so you were pretty much stuck to following their very specific rules. And I remember I was staying in another property. I was working in another hotel, to assist them. And I realized that the room that I was staying in a completely different city, in a completely different part of the country, looked exactly like the rooms that were in my property. And it seemed almost sterile to me. It seemed not a welcoming, homey place. And so that's why I went into the smaller independent properties, because literally each one is different. And
Yeah,
I feel like I can make more of a mark here.
yeah, and it's always interesting because to me it always ties back to that 10-year-old that had that sort of magical experience at the Parker, right? The Parker Hotel
That
and
Palmer, yes.
Palmer, the Palmer Hotel. And what happens is like trying to keep aligned with that true north. And yet, we have all these detours, right? And then it sounds like you got back on track and said, wow, independent little hotels where your heart and soul and spirit and creativity and theater background and trying different things and personalizing the experience and not having what you would seen as this sort of antiseptic, hey, whether I'm in Kansas City or Dubai, man, this hotel room is exactly the same.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. You've nailed it. It's
Okay.
and I can remember making that transition. My last probably year in the corporate hotel world, it became a job. It
Mm,
became something that I had to wake up and had to go to. And as cheesy as it sounds, the old phrase, if you like what you're doing, it never feels like work.
right.
That's very true. It was
Hmm.
a huge weight lifted off of my shoulders when I moved to, smaller independent properties. And I enjoy getting up in the morning and doing what I do now.
Right.
So, yes,
So tell me about that transition. Like, was it scary? Did you did you hire a recruiter? Like, how did that transition happen?
it was very scary. And this has been quite some time. I made that transition back around 2011, 2012.
Hmm.
Obviously, I kind of kept that quiet from the folks that I was working for at the
Sure.
time, as I just kind of did my own research and looked to see what was available. Obviously, the pay structure was not what I was used to in the corporate world.
Sure.
So yeah, there were a lot of nerves going into
Mhm.
this. Would I be able to make ends meet? Would I have the control that I was looking for?
Mhm.
And it just so happened that the very first folks that I spoke with about this were amazing. And so I started out at a small B&B in Eastern Virginia near the Chesapeake. And it was like from day one, my world changed in a very good, positive way.
See, I'm at a point in my life, and I hear this from you. I really only want to hang out with people where we're in alignment. Not there's anything wrong, or it's just some people like Italian food, some people like Indian food, and it sounds to me like this first experience, there was a sort of freedom to go, okay, these are my people. Like they think like me, they talk like me, they have the same sort of vision. Was that your experience?
100%. And that's one of the things that I love about independent properties is that to be a successful independent property, you have to do things that the guest isn't expecting. You
Mm-hmm.
have to go that extra mile. You have to create that hook. Whatever it is that brings people back. Small independent properties don't have thousands of dollars in marketing budgets. We can't do the same thing that larger corporate chains can do. So we kind of have to improvise and get creative and do things that people haven't seen before. So when they come and stay with you, they're like, oh my God, this place was amazing. And they go tell their friends, and it
Mm-hmm.
becomes kind of an organic marketing. So
Right.
yeah, and I love that challenge. I love trying to blow people's minds when they walk into a place.
So let me ask you this. What was one of the more outrageous things that pops to the top of your mind of where you guys went above and beyond to create an experience for your guests that's memorable to you?
So, and I mentioned this briefly earlier. And this was my very first B&B. It was a small 8-room property, older historic home. I was looking to do something to just a hook, just something creative. And so I thought, why not draw on my own background, what I'm familiar with and what I'm strong with? So I reached out to some of my contacts from the theater days.
Right.
And I just so happened to know a playwright who does amazing work. I told her a little bit about the property that I was at and the area that I was in, and she wrote a murder mystery dinner theater script that was tailored to the property and to the area.
Uh,
So there were actual like names of families that had lived in that area for generations. We opened it up to the public and did some very basic, local advertising, putting it on the Facebook page, that type of thing. And what was supposed to be just like a weekend, we had to expand to 4 weekends
wow.
because it was just such a hit and it was so much fun. And, you're literally working with your guests for this.
Right.
You're right there in the same room with them and trying to judge their reactions to how things are going. And it was just such an amazing experience. And it was something that I never could have done, in that larger corporate environment. So yeah,
Right.
that was the thing.
Wow. That sounds amazing. and it sounds fun, and it sounds like you must have been really in your sweet spot of like, okay, wow, I get to do it all. I get to be creative and an actor and call on old friends and create value in this place because I'm coming on. And so it must have felt very expansive at that point to be doing that.
It was amazing. I went from being very limited in what I could do every day to almost sky's the limit.
Right.
And when we saw the reaction to that, and not obviously I was very happy with it, but the owners of
Sure.
the property as well were very happy with it. And so that kind of opened up whole new worlds, get creative. What can we do here? We've done things as varied as we cleared out an entire room at a former property, took everything off the walls, and worked with local artists to bring their art. We would display it for a certain length of time. We would have art shows where people could come through and view it or purchase it. And it's those type of things. I'm a big believer in connecting with the local community as well.
Mm,
So much of my business is people from other places, out of state or out of
right.
country. But I think it's also important to bring in the local businesses in the area that you're in and kind of create this synergy, this kind of amazing package that you can't get anywhere else. And so, yeah, that's what I've done ever since.
So now, and how long ago did you move to Iris Inn?
I've been at Iris for a little over a year now.
Wow, so
Um,
relatively new.
yes, fairly new. Like I say,
I mean, new to this property, not new to this
yes,
experience.
yes, I am not new.
Right, right, right.
But yes, the property is new. And again, this is one of those things where I spoke with the owners, multiple times. This was a months long process before we, actually made the decision.
Right.
And like so many people that I have found in independent lodging, these guys were right on board with what we wanted to do and have been incredibly supportive. I speak with the owners on a regular basis, on a weekly
Mhm.
basis.
Sure.
But as far as physical interactions, they may visit the property 4 or 5 times a year. So we have a lot of independence here to do what we need to do, and they let us run with it. And it's been amazing.
Wow. And then how did Briarly and the Vineyards come out of that experience? Was that in play before you got there, or were you a part of that?
So both Briarly and Afton Mountain were in the process as I came in. We had, especially with Afton Mountain Vineyards, it had primarily just been a vineyard and a winery. And so something that we've been able to do is we put in overnight lodging. We have these gorgeous cabins there. We've also opened up to different events like weddings and family reunions. And so we've kind of added a whole aspect to Afton Mountain that wasn't there before.
Mm.
And it's been very successful. So yeah, it's fun for me to work at multiple properties
I was going to say, man, that sounds like
in a way that was not at
you're
all fun in
working
the
a
corporate
lot.
world.
Yeah, but I mean, you're working a
Yeah,
lot, but you're doing stuff that you love.
yeah, and that's exactly it. Is that it doesn't feel like work.
Right.
I feel like I'm having a great time and meeting tons of new people, and that's what I do for a living. And I'm very very fortunate that I can do that.
So now let's switch gears a little bit. I mean, you've been in the industry now for 20 years, or more,
Yes, 20 plus.
20 plus. And what have you seen? What have you seen in technology that's changed in 20 years? Like give
Pretty
me
much
just take, yeah, take me back. Like when you first started, what was happening with quote unquote technology in the hotel space?
when I first started, hotels still use brass keys. And
Yeah.
everything was written on paper. So we had this giant drawer full of brass keys to, 150 or 200 room property. So drawer of nothing but keys, and key control was one of the things that we constantly had to focus on. Who's got this key? Where does this key go?
Right.
Um, and yeah, even the check-in process, we would have to physically print registration cards
Mhm.
and
I remember that you had to
um,
fill it out and
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You remember the old credit card machines where you had to like slide
Oh,
the thing
yeah, yeah,
across?
yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
And you got the keys with the little plastic thing on it, and if found, mail to here, we'll pay the postage.
Yep, whole 9 yards. That
Wow.
is exactly the hotel world that I started in. And in the last 20, 25 years, obviously every aspect of that has changed.
Mhm.
Um, you have not lived until you have had to work at a 300 room property that is converting from brass keys to electronic locks.
Wow.
But yeah, it's one of those things where any new technology, there's always a challenge at the beginning. It's
Mhm.
always a learning curve and trying to figure out how to incorporate this and what things work and what things don't work. And so it's literally everything from electronic locks to when I first started, I believe it was something like 80% of all of our reservations came from people calling the property.
Right.
Now, 85% of my reservations come from online.
Mhm.
So
Now, through
it's
third-party providers or through your website?
I try to capture as much business as possible through our own website.
Mhm.
It just eliminates extra steps and for the guests, extra fees and all of that good stuff.
Mhm.
But yes, we do again, just something that you have to stay abreast of technology. If we weren't on those big third party booking engines, we wouldn't get nearly the reach that we get. So that's one of those, you kind of have to balance what you want to do with what you should do responsibly as a business owner. So yeah.
So, well, let me ask you this because this is where it gets fascinating for me with AI, right? Which is this term that it just feels scary and overwhelming and like, oh my God, I got to learn something else. And I don't want, and I'm watching Black Mirrors and I go, I don't want to deal with this. I mean, it's crazy.
Yes.
Um, and yet what I have found with business owners, myself included, it really is something that can take what you love to do and really turn it into a superpower. I mean, multiply that and take
100%.
what you hate or just, listen, we all procrastinate. Everybody, there's parts of everybody's job, right? It's just like, oh, I don't want to do this. And it becomes that to do item where I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I should have done it yesterday. And it takes that off the plate. And I'm just wondering, like, how you're using AI, like what you think about it, what's working, what's not working.
Yeah, absolutely. So AI in the hospitality industry is still very much a budding aspect. We're still in the very early stages. So right now, what we're seeing it used for is things like adjusting availability and
Uh-huh.
adjusting rates in the future based on how many people are booking which weekends and what particular day, and that's something that AI is far better than I am at.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, you kind of had to, look at your booking calendar for several months in advance, and you could say, "Well, it looks like this weekend is starting to get a little bit busy. This one isn't so much." The AI is able to pick up on trends before a human ever could.
Mm-hmm.
So that aspect of AI has been amazing for our business.
So
It can really
you're currently using one of the AI agents or whatever to do
that
that for
and
you.
they're incorporated into different operating machines that we currently use. Point of sale. That's the what I was searching for there.
Right.
So we don't necessarily have our own AI per se.
Got it.
But our booking engine incorporates artificial intelligence. We're also starting to look at AI in terms of some of the connections that we make with third-party companies. If we're, writing proposals to various people, AI is great for going along and correcting grammar for me, all of that good stuff. Um, I right now we're still at the point where it is very important for a human to double check AI.
Oh, absolutely. And this is what encourages me about it because this is what I'm seeing. Anybody can go into ChatGPT and go, hey, how do we book our rooms all the time? And it'll spit out some generic thing, and you go, oh, that's interesting, but no one's going to take action on it. It doesn't have your personality. It doesn't have your taste. It doesn't have your 25 years of experience. It doesn't have your creativity. It doesn't have your twist on things. And, I go back to that, what you talked about in when you met these new owners of these independent hotels, there was a connection there. There was a human connection of like, these are my people. I like this woman, man, whatever. And so I'm finding that's the tricky piece is you can't really just outsource. It really is understanding where the pain points are, where the growth opportunity is, what's out there, who's looking at it. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces to it. And it sounds like you're a little further than most. But if you had a magic wand and there was one pain point where you were like, ugh, I want to get rid of this, what would that be?
Far and away what I was just speaking about. The future projections, looking at future trends. Kind of the way that I envision AI operating is I want it running in the background, doing the things that take up my time and take me away from my guests.
Yeah.
I think that that human interaction with your guest, that's never going to be replaceable with AI.
Never.
It's just not going to happen. But I do think that using those AI tools to do some of the background stuff and to do some of the more tedious, data research type side of things,
Right.
that frees me up to do those things that I love doing and working with the guests and coming up with these new creative programs. So I definitely think that AI has a place. I worry about people becoming a bit too reliant on AI. Like I say, we're still in the phase where I don't really necessarily trust it until I double check it. So right now we have AI doing the work and then humans double checking that work and then doing something with that. Eventually, I think there will come a time where we can trust the AI. The AI can be running those background things that we were talking about. The humans are running the front of the house, the guest interaction, and then that just kind of seamlessly meshes. We're not quite there yet. AI is not that good yet.
Right.
But I can see it getting there soon.
Cool. So let me ask you one last question here. First of all, this has been totally enjoyable, and I feel like completely in sync with you. And man, I got to get down and get into one of those cabins because, and if you get an email from Pamela Springer from Harwich, Massachusetts, no, she's a friend of mine because I sent her the link. I said, I'm going to talk to this guy, Jeremy, today. She's like, oh, I'm booking it. We almost moved there. She loves those modern houses. I do too, with that unobstructed view. What's your favorite part of that property? Like, where's your place that you go and you're like, this is magical?
So I grew up in the Midwest. I've always been nature boy. We are literally on a mountaintop surrounded by woods. We have hiking trails right here on the property. The Iris has about 19 acres. And so we've cut trails through the woods, and that is my Zen time. Going out and wandering through the woods and just hearing the birds and hearing rustling of leaves. It's a way to kind of disconnect from some of the hectic things that being in the hospitality industry forces you to deal with. But, not going far. I walk out my front door and I'm on a trail in 5 minutes. And so that's far and away my favorite thing here.
And I also think, Jeremy, as I think about the 10-year-old boy in that beautiful hotel in Chicago, and not just in hospitality, but in life, those of us who are fortunate enough to listen to that little boy and pursue that through all of the obstacles and scary stuff and moving from corporate to this and listen, there's a million, as you know, in any business, there's what I want to do today and then there's what happens, right? We were
Every day.
scheduled earlier, the computer doesn't work. I mean, that's life.
Yep.
But if you love what you do, those things just become, all right, I'll deal with it. Let me go get the computer fixed and see if I can reschedule. I'm sure with your guests, things happen. I mean,
Yep.
businesses, whatever, there's stuff.
Yes.
And so I just really want to say thank you for honoring that in yourself, because it's obvious that you love what you do. And I'm sure you're really, really good at it. And I've just really appreciated having this call.
This has been an absolute pleasure for me as well. I don't often just get to talk about what I do and what we do in the background. And this has been fun for me, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for tuning in to Shift Happens. If you've got value from today's episode, hit subscribe, leave a comment. I'd love to know what you're thinking. If you're ready to turn what you love into your superpower and take what you hate off your plate, schedule your free AI discovery call. The link is in the description and pinned comment. I'm Gus Waite. Until next time.